Hey everyone, Chris here. If you haven't been following, I am now finishing up a lengthy series where I rank every feat in official 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. And I have a lot of books to go through today, and by the time we're done, we'll have ranked 105 feats in D&D. If you just want to know what the ranks are, click the video description. I've got them all listed out for you, and they're all in order. But today, I want to go over Planescape because I never actually really went over the Planescape feats, and I just want to do that so that you guys know what are in there, as well as go over Fizbin, Strixhaven, the Book of Many Things, the Eberron books, and the Elemental Evil Player's Guide. There's not as many feats there as it sounds like, and we're going to finally finish this series off. This is a fairly rigorous system. I am going through every trait of every feat, assigning it a point value, adding them all together, then comparing that total with the total of every other feat in the game to create a full ranking system. So when you look at the screen here, this isn't just S and A and B. Every single feat here is listed in order, though there are some ties. But I want to get started. There's a fair bit to get through. I want to start with Agent of Order. And we're going to start with an ability score increase, and we can choose any ability we want, so that's worth 25 points. Then we have Stasis Strike. Once per turn, when you damage a creature you can see within 60 feet of yourself, you can deal an extra d8 force damage to the target, and must make a Wisdom saving throw as spectral bindings try to ensnare it. On a successful save, the target escapes, and on a failed save, it has the Restrain condition until the start of your next turn. And we can do this proficiency bonus times per long rest. I mean, Restrained is pretty good. I figure this is worth 28 points, plus the 25 from the ability score increase, and that's a 53-point feat. And that's A tier, right up around here. And next we have Baleful Scion. So, same thing, ability score increase. We can choose the ability score, so that's worth 25. And then we have Grasp of Avarice. Once per turn, when you damage a creature you can see within 60 feet of yourself, you can also deal necrotic damage to it. Necrotic damage equals a d6 plus your proficiency bonus, and you regain a number of hit points equal to the necrotic damage dealt, and proficiency bonus times per long rest. Little less exciting to me than the stasis option of Agent of Order, but not bad. I'm going to say 23 points. And so Baleful Scion is worth a total of 48 points. And that puts it up around the top of B tier, so not too bad. Next we have Cohort of Chaos. So first we have an ability score increase. Pick the ability, that's worth 25. Then we have Chaotic Flare. When you roll a 1 or a 20 on an attack roll or saving throw, the magic of chaos flows through you. Roll a d4 and consult the Chaotic Flares table to determine what happens. A flare lasts until the end of your next turn, and a new flare can't occur until after the first flare ends. And these things are okay. I'm not all that impressed with this one. I'm giving it 12 points, plus the ability score increase, total of 37 points. That puts it at the high end of D tier. Our next one is Outlands Envoy. Alright, ability score increase is worth 25 points, and we are going to learn the Misty Step and Tongue spell, and we can cast them both without a spell slot. Then we can use our regular spell slots to cast them, and when you cast Tongues, it requires no material components. Now, Tongues is a 3rd level spell, which is usually really good for a feat, though I consider it a fairly circumstantial spell. Again, we're just talking about communication, but you know what? It's a 3rd level spell. I'll give it its props. The total for Emissary is 33 points. Add that to the ability score increase, and we have a 58-point total for Outlands Envoy. And that is S tier, up here by Ember of the Fire Giants. And our next feat is Planar Wanderer. So we got 3 things here. First, we're going to have either resistance to cold, acid, or fire damage, our choice, and we can switch it each time we take a long rest, so I'm going to give that a total of 15 points. Then we have Portal Cracker. Your experience with portals allows you to open them without a portal key. I mean, if you are playing Planescape, this is going to come up, I assume, but for regular players, this is purely a ribbon, 4 points. And then Portal Sense, you know the direction to the last planar portal you use, same thing. It's very much campaign specific, So if I was not playing in Planescape, I'd never even consider Planar Wanderer. But Portal Sense gets you another 4 points for a total of 23. So if we're not considering that we're playing in Planescape, Planar Wanderer is F tier, and it is below Prodigy. So that's a spot of shame right there. All right, Righteous Heritor. We're going to start with an ability score increase. Pick any ability score. That's 25. And then Soothe Pain. When you or a creature within 30 feet of you takes damage, you can use your reaction to reduce that damage by a d10 plus your proficiency bonus. You can use this benefit a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. That's decent. I'm going to give that 18 points for a total of 43. And that is enough to be at the low end of B tier. Next we have Scion of the Outer Planes. And this is the last Planescape feat. And I should mention the prerequisites for these are Planescape campaign, and a lot of these campaign ones are prerequisite of that campaign. But I mean, I'm just assuming a lot of DMs allow these outside of those campaigns anyways, and I am reviewing them in a more general theme. But Scion of the Outer Planes. First, we're going to get resistance to damage type and ability to cast a cantrip based on the plane that we've chosen. And so we're either going to get Poison, Necrotic, Radiant Force, or Psychic resistance, and Minor Illusion, Chill Touch, Sacred Flame, Guidance, or Mage Hand as the cantrip. And put those together, and I looked at all the combinations, and I figure this is a 23-point feature, and this should totally be a half feat. But it ain't, so 23 total. So it ties with Planar Wanderer, down at the low ends of F. And now we are going to go to Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. And we will begin with Gift of the Chromatic Dragon. So we got two things here. First is Chromatic Infusion. As a bonus action, you can touch a simple or martial weapon and infuse it with one of the following damage types. Acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison. For the next minute, it does an extra d4 damage of the chosen type when it hits. This isn't once per turn or anything, so on a hand crossbow or something like that, it can be good. After you use this bonus action, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. I give that 15 points. And then reactive resistance. When you take acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison damage, you can use your reaction to give yourself resistance to that instant of damage, number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest. And yeah, that's reasonably useful. Obviously, there's a first level spell that does something very similar to that, though the damage types are slightly different. But nevertheless, I'd say 18 points. Add infusion and resistance together, and we're talking 33. So that's not great, but it is enough to get out of F tier. It's at the low end of D tier. Next, we have Gift of the Gem Dragon. So we're going to get ability score increase, 3 options. That's worth 23 points. And then Telekinetic Reprisal. When you take damage from a creature that is within 10 feet of you, you can use your reaction to emanate telekinetic energy. The creature that dealt damage to you must make a strength saving throw. On a failed save, they take 2d8 force damage, and they're pushed 10 feet away from you. On a successful save, they take half as much damage and they're not pushed, and you can do a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest. This is okay. I don't think it's great. I'm giving it 13 points. So a total of 36 points for this feat. And that's only enough for D tier, and it's up right around here. And then we have Gift of the Metallic Dragon. So we're going to get Draconic Healing. You learn the Cure Wounds spell. You can cast a spell without expending a spell slot. You can also cast a spell using the spell slot you have, and you choose your casting ability score. And Cure Wounds is okay as a first level spell, but it's not exciting. It's worth 10 points. And then Protective Wings. You can manifest Protective Wings that can shield you or others. When you or another creature you can see within 5 feet of you is hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to manifest Spectral Wings from your back for a moment. You grant a bonus to the target's armor class equal to your proficiency bonus against that attack roll, potentially causing it to miss, proficiency bonus times per long rest. What's kind of interesting here is if you're protecting an ally, since you're using your own reaction, they could still use their own reaction for a shield spell, and you could combine them and get like ridiculous armor classes out of this. Overall, I think Protective Wings is fairly good. I'm going to give it 30 points. And so Gift of the Metallic Dragon as a total, 40-point feat. And so, C tier, middle of the road. So that's it for Fizban's, and we're on to Strixhaven, and we will begin with Strixhaven Initiate. So you're going to choose one of Strixhaven's colleges, and it's going to tell you which of 2 cantrips you can pick from, and then you're going to get a bonus first level spell, and that's going to determine which spell list you can pick from. And like with modern feats, you can use the spellcasting ability of your choice, and you can cast them all with your spell slots as well as once for free per long rest. Now, the toughest part about this feat is your cantrip selection is very controlled, so we're not going to be able to pick like the 2 best cantrips. We're going to be stuck with this list, but we can do pretty well. I figure the cantrips are worth 15, but the first level spell, you have a lot of options here. It's got to be worth 20. Add those together, and Strixhaven Initiate is a 35-point feat. And so it's on D tier, but it is a little bit ahead of Magic Initiate, and honestly, if you're choosing between the 2, I would recommend Strixhaven Initiate. And then the other feat from Strixhaven, Strixhaven Mascot. So we got 3 things here. First, we can cast the Find Familiar spell as a ritual. Your familiar can take the form of the mascot associated with the college you chose for the Strixhaven Initiate feat, a Spirit Statue mascot, an Art Elemental mascot, a Fractal mascot, that's the best one by the way, is the Fractal mascot, an Inkling mascot, or a Pest mascot. Stat blocks appear for these creatures in Chapter 7. Yeah, Fractal mascot is significantly better than any of the other familiars on this list or any of the base Find Familiar options. So that's a lot stacked on the Find Familiar spell, which is already a great first level spell. So I'm giving this 35 points. Number 2, when you take the attack action on your turn, you can forego 1 attack to allow your mascot familiar to make 1 attack of its own with its reaction. None of these are good at attacking, so this isn't good. It's 2 points. And then, if your mascot familiar is within 60 feet of you, you can teleport as an action, swapping places with the familiar. And it's basically once per long rest, or you can do it again by expending a 2nd level spell slot or higher. And it's okay. I'd say it's worth 10 points. And so add it all together in Strixhaven Mascot, that's a 47-point feat. And that's B, tied with Skill Expert. Alright, so that's the end of Strixhaven. We move on to the Book of Many Things and the hardest feat in the game to give a rank to. So, Cartomancer. Alright, so this is what we get. You can use a card deck as your spellcasting focus, and that's worth a straight 5 points. Then, Card Tricks. You learn the Prestidigitation cantrip, and you can use it to create illusions that duplicate the effects of stage magic. When you use your Prestidigitation this way, you can conceal the verbal and somatic components of the spell as ordinary conversation and card handling. That's a ribbon, 5 points. And then the one that's hard to rank. Hidden Ace. When you finish a long rest, you can choose 1 spell from your class's spell list, not necessarily one you need to know or in your spell book, just on your class's spell list, and imbue that spell into a card. The chosen spell must have a casting time of 1 action, and it must be a level for which you have spell slots. Not necessarily have enough levels in that class. So if you have, say, 1 level in Cleric, but you have 17 levels in Wizard, you could choose Mass Heal, for example. The card remains imbued with this spell for 8 hours. While the card is imbued with a spell, you can use a bonus action to flourish the card and cast a spell within. The card then immediately loses its magic. There are lots of questions about how this works. Lots, which makes it hard to rank. But what I do know is, regardless of how you interpret it, it's really good. I figure this has got to be worth at least 45 points out of 50. Add the other 2 things, and we have a total of 55 for Cartomancer. That makes it A-ranked, right up there. Alright, we're now going to go on to Eberron. And so we have 2 books with Eberron, and then we'll just do them both together. First, we have Aberrant Dragonmark from Wayfarer's Guide to Eberron. So, first off, we're going to get a Constitution increase of +1. That's worth 20 points. Second, we're going to get a cantrip of our choice from the Sorcerer's spell list. That is worth 9 points. Next, we will get a first level spell from the Sorcerer's spell list, and we can cast it once for free, and we can't cast it again until we get a short or long rest. Unusually, Constitution is our spellcasting ability for these spells. I mean, good option for the shield spell for a non-caster, I'd say. 20 points. Then, when you cast a first level spell through your mark, you can expand one of your hit dice and roll it. If you roll an even number, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to the number rolled. If you roll an odd number, one random creature within 30 feet of you, not including you, takes force damage equal to the number rolled. If no other creatures are in range, you take the damage. Yeah, this is a light benefit, if a benefit at all, but we'll say 5 points for it. And you also develop a random flaw from the Aberrant Dragonmark's flaws table. And these are all flavor. None of them are mechanical penalties, so this is 0. All right, so we have con plus 1 is 20, cantrip for 9, first level spell is 20, the hit die thing for 5, and so we have a total point score of 54. But I do want to actually add just an amendum here. If we scroll down, we have this option for greater aberrant powers, and if you use this option, I'd add another 20 points. I'm going to assume, for the purposes of ranking this feat, that we're not using the option, so it's going to be 54 points. And that puts it around the middle of A tier, tied with Infernal Constitution. The other Aberrant feat is Revenant Blade. So Revenant Blade allows you to increase your dexterity or strength score by 1, so 2 choices, that's worth 22 points. Then, while you're holding a double-bladed scimitar with 2 hands, you gain a +1 bonus to armor class. If you took Revenant Blade, I assume you're using a double-bladed scimitar all the time. Whether you have it drawn all the time, maybe not, I'll still say 18 points. And then a double-bladed scimitar has the finesse property when you wield it. I mean, for some builds this is extremely important. But we have to question just how much better this is than just using 2 scimitars, which already have the finesse property. Like, maybe this weapon should have had the finesse property to begin with. I'm only going to give it ribbon. 5 points. Total of 45 points for Revenant Blade. Still not for B tier. Right here around the middle, right there. And this, what you see right here, is actually all the official feats for 5th edition. We're going to include one more, and that is because it used to be official, but we're going to look at Svirfneblin Magic. So this is from the Elemental Evil Player's Companion, and this is legacy content, because it was meant for the Legacy Gnome, or the Legacy Deep Gnome, I should say. That was in Elemental Evil Player's Companion, and it didn't get spellcasting. So Svirfneblin Magic was a feat you could do to give it spellcasting. Of course, Deep Gnomes from Monsters of the Multiverse have spellcasting built in, so they likely aren't going to be looking at this feat. But anyways, if you are a Legacy Deep Gnome, what you get is the ability to cast non-detection on yourself at will, and you get blindness, deafness, blur, and disguise self. You can cast them all once for free per long rest. You cannot choose to cast them with spell slots, and you are using intelligence as your spellcasting modifier. Non-detection is a 3rd level spell. We're casting it at will, but non-detection just doesn't come up very often. Unless you are playing an Abjurer Wizard and constantly using this to refresh your Arcane Ward, then there's not a whole lot of benefit to non-detection all the time. I'm giving it 10 points. Blindness, deafness is better. I'll give it 12. I'll give Blur 8. And I'll give Disguise Self 10. That is a total of 40 points for Svirfneblin Magic. And that puts it at C tier, tied with Dual Wielder. And there you have it. This is the final rankings of all feats in 5th edition D&D. These, of course, are based entirely on my opinion. So if you have different opinions, feel free to share them in the comments down below. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Otherwise, I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.